get started. So good morning everyone, we are back here to work on the 2013 listening. This time we are going to do part B, and since we don't have a lot of time tomorrow, we only have one lesson tomorrow, so we will go pretty fast today. So hopefully you are with a clear mind to start with. 如果你今朝都個人都唔係好清醒咧，係時候咧，首先咧就刮自己兩巴先啦，因為今日會去得比較快。咁同埋我哋聽日得一堂啦，咁所以咧我哋如果想講多少少 B2 嘅話咧，今日 B1 嗰度咧都唔可以拖太耐。咁所以咧 make sure 你清醒啦，叫自己清醒啦，係諗下，如果你今朝9點鐘就開始考試，咁你嘅感覺係點樣呢？即係you should know that in your DSE, your listening exam will start at around 9 o'clock. You will enter the examination hall at around 8:15, and then you will sit there for 45 minutes, tuning your radio, checking papers, listening to useless instructions, and then at 9 o'clock the recording on radio RTHK, it will start at 9. So it's pretty much at this hour, and you won't be at a very clear mind when you start the listening paper. Quite similar to what you are now, probably. 咁所以第一刮自己兩巴清醒啲啦，咁啊知道咧。而家你呢個9點鐘嘅時候咧，就係你翻工嘅時候啦。呢份卷講咗好多次，其實係一份教你第時做文職翻工嘅卷，跟老細做嘢，老細叫你做乜就做乜 ，OK？ 跟住但係要加翻少少咧，即係待人之道喺裏邊，要識得寫信要有禮貌 ，OK？ 咁係一個翻工嘅感覺嚟嘅。咁如果啲同學有做過，自己有出邊有做 part time 咁，你知道啦。你翻工嘅時候咧，同你自己喺屋企 hea 嘅時候咧，應該係完全係兩個人嚟嘅，唔應該係即係平時你冇禮貌嗰啲，你去到突然間要非常有禮貌嗰啲啦，係咪？咁類似係咁情況。Okay, so let's get started. This is the listening data file for Part B1. Let me share a screen for you. Okay. Alright, so Part B situation. You're Marty Poon. You work for a magazine called Asia Life. So this set your start. So you work for a magazine. So this is your company. 你公司係一間做雜誌嘅公司。你就係 assistant to Cassie Wong, the editor in charge of the magazine. 咁即係做呢個編輯先生嘅助手啦。So firstly, you listen to a recording of a podcast called Travel Report. In the podcast, you will hear an interview with Adrian Lim and Kelly Johnson. 咁你將會聽一個 interview 啦，咁同啲 travel 有關嘅，同旅遊有關嘅啦。啲同學咧，我發覺咧，佢哋揾資料揾唔到咧，最大嘅原因係咩咧？就係佢哋連目錄都唔睇嘅，咁所以咧根本完全唔知由頭到尾唔知發生咩事啦。咁所以一開始咧，人哋俾準備時間你咧，唔該你都立個目錄係大概講啲乜嘢。OK，Number one 就係你嗰張 note sheet 啦，唔使講噶啦。Number two 咧就係一定係 email from 你個 boss 啦 to 你啦，咁所以呢個就係你個 boss 個名啦，呢個係你個名啦。咁今日你叫 Marty Poon 啦，你唔好叫 Chris Wong， 亦都唔好叫第啲名啦。OK， 咁你係 Marty Poon，OK， 你 your boss is Cassie Wong。咁所以最緊要一定咧就係睇呢個啦，即係千祈唔好唔睇呢個啦。咁你嗰5分鐘你真係唔夠時間睇嘅話，都必定要睇晒 你老細個 email， 呢個係最基本嘅。其他嗰啲睇唔切咧，可以留翻之後。呢一版你睇唔晒咧，咁你亦嚴重影響你等人做 note taking。Okay, then 3 travel statistics from the World Travel Organization 一啲嘅數據啦，旅遊嘅數據啦，咁就係一個作嘅團體啊 WTO 咁樣，即係 WTO 原本咧係世界貿易組織 World Trade Organization， 咁佢就作咗個 World Travel Organization 咁樣啦。4 advertisements from holiday companies 一啲旅行社嘅廣告啦。web page for Beacon Hotel 一個酒店嘅網頁啦，然後 press conference 咧就係你哋冇咁熟悉啦，就係記者招待會嘅乜嘢咧 excerpt 就係一個節錄，記者招待會嘅節錄。Okay, from the International Airport Committee 嗰個嘅機場嘅委員會嘅記者會嘅節錄。Okay, 呢個有啲複雜。咁但係你睇慣咧呢啲字咧listening 成日都會出現嘅。excerpt 即係嗰個節錄啦。press conference 記者會。Number 7 travel bloggers webpage 啲普通啲 bloggers 啲自己寫 blog 嗰啲人啦。自己寫嘅網頁啦 ，8 minutes from sales meeting， 會議記錄呢個 minutes 唔係分鐘咁解，係會議記錄，係一個嘅銷售嘅會議記錄。咁Asia Live Magazine 咩嚟㗎 ？Asia Live Magazine 咁熟嘅，你間公司咪就叫 Asia Live 咯。OK， 咁呢啲你一睇你就要入腦㗎啦，自動好似裝個程式落你自己個腦咁。我今日係叫 Marty Poon， 我老細係叫 Cassie Wong， 我而家返緊工嗰間係雜誌社個公司名叫 Asia Live， 即刻入腦㗎啦。呢啲你睇到呢啲要好 sensitive， 你即刻知道發生緊咩事。如果唔係你到時咧得1個鐘頭零3個字咧，搞3個 task 咧一定做唔切。如果你做 B2 就更加做唔切。9 advertisement for the next issue from the Plaza Hotel， 咁又係酒店廣告啦。咁所以你見到咧成個佈局咧，全部都係啲同啲旅遊有關嘅嘢啦。你做雜誌社，你間雜誌社今期咧，好有可能你都可以乜都唔使聽，乜都唔使估咧，你都知咧係介紹啲旅遊有關嘢。咁所以你使用嘅資料裏邊咧，有一啲嘅數據啦，有啲統計啦。旅遊嘅統計啦，會有啲廣告啦，會有啲機場啲人開記者會嘅時候嘅一啲內容啦，會有一啲嘅你自己內部嘅會議記錄啦，咁又收到啲酒店嘅廣告啦，咁所以咧將一大堆嘅咩炒埋一碟之後咧，就會係你需要做嘅幾篇嘅作品啦。咁呢個 note sheet 啦 ，this page is note sheet, and the next page is the boss email. So we start from here. Dear Marty, we've decided to do 3 things. So always we have 3 tasks in our DSE. First task is the fact file. 咁你睇呢度咧就嘅時候咧，應該咧就同埋你嗰個卷一齊睇。咁即係對翻啦 ，fact file 就係。fact file 啦，咁task 5就係呢嚿嘢啦。咁通常都順序咁，所以其實即係呢一行咧就會係task 5啦。呢個就係 task 6啦。呢個就 task 7。咁所以做咩啊？咁firstly, we're going to post a fun holiday fact file at the beginning of each issue.Can you finish the rest of the information of fact file? Look at your notes. 咁記住咧睇呢啲字。當啲字咧佢多到好似海量嘅字嘅時候咧，睇呢字。Look at 邊度？佢會教埋你㗎，你要睇邊一忽。成個 data file 咁多頁，10頁8頁紙，睇邊忽好咧？咁你就教你啦。Look at the notes from the travel report podcast。咁講得話 notes 即係你等陣要填呢一張 note sheet。OK， 或者 podcast， 你聽到 podcast 咧就即係咧係聆聽嘅，係聽嗰 part。凡係聽嗰 part， 通常叫 podcast 而家。OK， 咁就以前就叫 iPod 係部機嚟嘅，蘋果嘅一部 iPad 以前出嘅一部手提機叫 iPod 聽歌嘅。咁所以咧嗰啲 擺喺蘋果個網頁嗰啲嘢咧就叫 podcast。咁啊到而家佢都好中意，仍然係咁樣用嘅呢個。咁總之你見到 podcast 咧，見到 notes 咧，你就知道咧，其實就係睇翻你上邊嗰張 note sheet。OK， 好，繼續啦。咁仲要睇咩啊 ？The statistics from your World Travel Organization, the press conference excerpt 咩嚟㗎？呢啲咪就係你頭先目錄見到嗰啲頁數咯。咁即係話俾你聽 ，OK， 你要睇一版嘢，呢度一版啦，係咪？呢度就係你個 notes 啦，一版嘢，兩版嘢 ，press conference 第三版嘢。跟住然後 travel speakers page web page 四版嘢，即係你要用四版 data file 咧去做你個 task 5。咁啊最唔好漏咗啲見到人哋叫你 remember 乜乜，即係叫你做啦，即係老細叫你 remember 要做啊，咁即係要做嘢啦。做咩啊 ？Give each section a suitable heading 咩嚟㗎？咩 suitable heading 啊？我叫你寫翻個標題啊，邊度有標題啊？自己對翻份卷望下，咦，空嘅，哦，空嘅，係啊，標題寫呢度啊。當年我同啲同學做咧，有人咧係連呢度係做咩都唔知㗎，以為咧條線咧係裝飾嚟㗎，咁啊就漏咗三分㗎啦呢度。OK， 人哋係真係講明㗎，每一句寫得清清楚楚，同你學校做嗰啲卷唔一樣嘅。DSE 卷每一忽要做嘅，要得你做嘅嘢一定會清楚講明。教埋你做嘅 ，OK？B1 一定會係啦 ，B2 就睇年份，有時會，有時唔會，有時俾一半都有嘅。咁但係如果你做 B1 嘅話咧，必然咧就係每一忽你要做嘅都齊嘅。咁所以睇清楚呢啲 signal words、look at 啊、remember 咁，你知道你要自己要做啲咩啦。OK， 咁。跟住 task 6咯 ，task 6咧就話 Kimber's at the Plaza Hotel， 咁你頭先知道 data file 裏邊最尾嗰頁咧就係呢間酒店啦。如果你仲唔知道咧，即係你仲未上路啦，咁你要快啲入路啦。OK， 酒店就 send 咗一個廣告俾我哋啦，咁咧但係有問題喎 ，there are some problems with it. Please email him and tell him what he needs to change in the advertisement. 咁所以主要你要做嘅嘢咧就係話俾佢聽，你份廣告唔掂啊 ，OK 有問題。有問題係點啊？咁有問題改咯，唔該，係啦。咁啊睇邊度啊？又嚟啦 ，look at 叫你睇邊一版，咁啊又睇過幾版嘢啦。咁啊今次咧就睇你個會議記錄啦 ，the minutes from the last sales meeting。跟住咧當然咧人叫你改得個廣告，咁啊睇下人哋個廣告 ，a copy of the advertisement。個廣告係咩樣嘅？咁啊都望一望人哋個廣告發生咩事啦。咁然後咧就望一望 sales team has made some notes。OK， 你個 team 有啲筆記咁樣 mark 咗喺個廣告嗰度嘅，咁你要留意啦。跟住然後又叫你 remember 啦，咁啊今次唔用 remember， 改個字用 remind， 提佢啊，提佢仲有乜嘢啊？提佢咧要寫嘅咧係submission deadline， 幾時交個改好嘅廣告啊，同埋咧幾時俾錢 ，OK，first payment date。咁你落喺你個雜誌度落廣告，梗係要俾錢㗎啦，俾錢嘅有 deadline 啦。你過咗期唔俾錢，人哋梗係唔幫你落廣告嘅。咁呢啲你要上路啦，即係嗱，你係 Marty Poon，OK？ 你做緊間雜誌社，你間雜誌社下一期就專搞啲旅遊嘢，搞得旅遊嘢，所以你就會有啲資料俾讀者啦。咁就係 task 5啦，然後 task 6咧就係落廣告嘅事宜啦，落間酒店嘅廣告。咁佢間酒店啲廣告咧，啲人梗係唔識噶嘛。咁佢 send 份廣告嚟啊，梗係你就打回頭話俾佢聽唔得啦。咁啊，然後教埋佢咧啊，幾時好交啦，幾時要交錢啊咁當然啦，就唔係用呢個通啦。呢個係對你自己伙計講嘅啫，係咪？咁但係你對人哋講啊，梗係禮貌啲啦。如果唔係人哋下次廣告都唔落你嗰間雜誌社啦，咁多雜誌咁啊落你嗰間咧。OK， task 7就寫 short feature article。We want to include a short feature article to introduce unusual hotels。寫咩啊？寫 unusual 介紹喎，寫篇 article 喎，去介紹啲 unusual hotels， 一啲唔係咁 common 嘅酒店，即係比較特別啦，可以咁講，比較 unique 嘅 嘅 hotels 啦。咁所以咧，你呢啲諗到嘅時候咧，你其實可以諗埋啲paraphrasings 啦、special 啦，係咪 unique 啦？咁呢啲字咧，你可以用到係同一個意思嘅 unusual。OK 咁啊寫咩啊？寫三大個嘢啦。咁啊呢個唔係嘢嚟嘅，呢個 suitable title 叫你記住要加翻個標題。OK 唔好淨係 call it。Don't just call it unusual hotel， 唔好就咁叫 unusual hotel， 俾個好少少嘅 title 佢啊。好啦，跟住然後 an interesting opening and closing， 即係要有開頭嗰段啦，同埋結尾嗰段啦。然後 a description of 3 types of unusual hotel， 3種 unusual hotel，where they are， 講得好清楚啦，3種嘅邊度啊 ，where they are。Why people like staying？OK， 點解啲人中意去呢啲地方？咁即係寫幾多段啊？咁你咪數下咯。Opening 開頭一段，3種 hotel 各一段，跟住結尾一段。咁即係咧，你要寫 5 paragraphs 咯，係咪？5段啦，5 paragraphs。咁又睇邊度啊 ？Data file 咁多頁，又教你啦。又 look at the web page of the Beacon Hotel， 睇下呢個 Beacon Hotel 嘅酒店嗰個網頁啦，睇下 The Travel Bloggers web page 呢個又係另外一頁啦 ，Data File 嘅另外一版啦，然後 Travel Ads 第3版啦，好啦又嚟啦，你見到個格式好連貫嘅 ，Remember 又叫你記住睇埋咩啊？記住睇埋你自己嗰個 notes， 咁即係又睇翻你聽嗰張 note sheet 嗰個部分咯，係咪？咁啊，即係要睇4頁，1、2、3、4，睇4頁咧就到 task 7，task 7就寫5段，5段就要包埋要有 title，OK， 咁啊搞掂啦。咁即係同你做緊咩啊？教你咧點樣睇呢個data file 嘅第一版咧？點樣睇老細要你做嘢？點樣入腦？你諗清楚啦！你而家要做乜嘢啊？3個 task， 第一個 task 就做啲數據，睇4頁寫數據。task 6跟住就係廣告，打回頭嘅份廣告。OK，task 7就係介紹3間呢個特殊酒店。好啦，點解要睇得咁清楚發生緊咩事啊？咁即係呢啲你圈住呢啲，你稍後先睇都得啦，係咪？即係 data file 邊一版嘅資料就係你做嗰陣先開始睇啦。咁但係前邊嗰橛究竟你做啲乜嘢咧？咁你就要一定開頭睇定啦，係咪？即係呢啲做啲 information 啊，有問題要改個廣告啊，同埋咧介紹啲酒店，咁呢啲你一開波立一立第一句 ，OK， 通常都知道大概個 task 係乜噶啦。睇埋啲標題 ，short feature article、email，OK，to the hotel，OK，fact file， 再立一立嗰幾個 task 大概係咩樣嘅，咁你先知道自己發生咩事。OK，task 5就係一個數據資料表。OK， 然後 task 6就係寫封 email 嚟嘅，佢寫俾嗰間酒店嘅 email。task 7寫篇 feature article about unusual hotel。咁你嗰5至10分鐘嘅時間其實夠晒你做呢樣嘢嘅，即係知道自己係咩 task。咁知道自己咩 task 有咩重要性啊？就係當你睇翻你張 note sheet 啦。咁我以前都講過俾我啲同學聽嘅。其實呢張 note sheet 咧係 B1 同 B2 咧係共通嘅，咁所以即係話乜嘢咧？即係話咧，如果你一開波你已經諗定揀定係做 B1 定 B2 嘅話咧，其實你有啲部分係唔使聽嘅。咁我哋頭先嗰3個 task 邊個係 B1 啊？你而家諗到啦，係咪？咁啊一啲資料性嘅嘢有啲乜嘢啊？譬如話 OK。世界最忙嘅 airport 啦，最正嘅 airport 啦，係咪？邊啲地方咧 ？Top 4 travel destination， 啲人中意去邊啲地方㗎？同埋咧 ，people travel for 6 reasons， 點解啲人要去旅行啊？咁呢啲咧就係 你要聽嘅，你要有機會需要揾嘅資料啦。咁所以你就判斷一下啦，你 note sheet 裏邊呢幾個 title 究竟關唔關你個 part B1 嘅事咧？咁呢個就啱啱我哋睇咗啦，係咪？就係將 information 裏邊第四格嘅呢個部分啦，即係呢度啦，係咪？第四格點解啲人要 travel 啊？咁有6個原因，咁即係實有啲咧係你需要喺度聽噶啦。咁即係話咧呢嚿咧你係要聽嘅，如果你做 B1。好啦 ，information about travel tourism in the past，OK， 旅遊嘅過去嘅一啲資料啊。頭先我哋睇咗3個 task， 完全都同過去人無關嘅。咁你就可以估到咧，其實呢一 part 咧係屬於 B2 嘅。如果你唔係揀 B2， 你根本連聽都唔需要聽呢一嚿。好啦，呢個表，咦咁熟口面嘅，係啊，咁咪即係呢個表咯，就係都填咗一半俾你睇啦。係咪？仲唔係呢個？即係傻嘅都知係呢個啦，係咪？咁啊，即係呢個你要聽啦。咁所以呢個係 B1 嘅。unusual hotel 啊，講咗啦。呢個咪就係我哋嗰個 B1 嗰個task 7咯，最尾個 task 咯，係咪？跟住呢個 effects of travel and tourism 旅遊嘅影響唔關事啦，係咪？咁你知道啦。呢個係 B2， 咁你又要知道個佈局啦。B1 係簡單好多嘅 ，B2 係長好多嘅。所以咧，如果你唔做 B2 嘅話咧，呢一嚿嘢你會發覺咧，你好長㗎，好長，咁就一路講好耐㗎。最尾呢一嚿又係會好長嘅。而你 B1 你做 B1 嘅話咧，要聽呢幾個部分咧就好短嘅啫，好短。咁所以咧，你其實咧聽完，你聽到呢一個位咧，如果你做 B1 嘅話，你聽完呢個位咧，其實後邊你根本唔使聽噶啦，你可以除 headphone 噶啦。咁你就開始做你個 task，咁就慳翻啲時間咧，等你自己可以慢少少做，唔使冇咁急。咁如果你做 B2 咁啊，唔好走啦，係咪？咁你做 B2 嘅話，咁你就聽晒啦。好，咁我哋而家試下聽一聽，究竟噏乜鬼嘢
？Welcome everyone to Travel Report. This is Scott Lamb bringing you this week's edition. Let's welcome our guests for this week's podcast first of all. I'm very pleased to have here in the pod tonight Adrian Lynn.
Good evening.
Adrian, you're a travel agent specializing in unusual holidays. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And we also have with us Dr. Kelly Johnson.
Evening.
Now, Kelly, you've been on the program lots of times before, but just for those who don't know, you're a lecturer in travel and tourism.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, let's begin this week then with the question, why do people travel? Adrian.
Well, I suppose people go on holiday and travel for many different reasons.
Such as?
Well, a recent survey showed that the most popular reasons people gave for going on holiday and traveling are wanting to challenge themselves and have fun.
Yeah, that's what I would have guessed people would say. Sometimes we forget that having fun is as important as anything else.
Yeah, but people gave other reasons in the survey. They want to do other things. That's why they travel, like, say, learn a language. That's another reason to travel.
Like me, I guess. I went to Japan after university to learn more Japanese.
Oh, so did I. I'm not sure how much Japanese I learnt, though.
Right. So, that's a few reasons anyway. We travel to challenge ourselves, have fun, or learn a language. So I suppose the reasons why people travel haven't changed much. But other aspects of travel maybe have.
That's right.
So, what was different about travel? International travel, I mean.
So this was
in
from
the past
B2.
then, say, in the 1920s. Kelly?
Well, the main differences about present-day travel compared to the 1920s, I suppose, If we're talking about international travel, are things like the transport, how people travelled, and the length of time. I mean, how long it took.
What was the transport? By ship or train or...
Yeah, international travel meant people travelled by ship or by train.
Yeah, I was reading about this. It took a long time, so that's why holidays were longer. Like, it could take 6 weeks to travel by ship from London to Hong Kong for tourists.
6 weeks? Wow! Can you imagine? Nowadays, it's really common for lots of people from all countries to go abroad on holiday. Was this always the case, or is this a recent phenomenon? I mean, was international travel an unusual holiday in itself in the past?
Well, from my own research into this, yes, you're right. It was only the very rich people. Travel was very expensive, and, well, with the transport and time, only rich people could do it.
So, all of this holidays abroad is a new thing then?
Well, yes, it's really been in the last 30 years that it's really taken off.
So what's the most popular places to visit nowadays? Maybe Adrian, you'd be the person to ask.
Right. I've got some statistics here.
好，咁所以咧，你聽到咧，其實呢中間呢一個咧就對翻呢個部分啦。過去嘅 tourism 同而家個比較咁有咩分別咧？咁就有頭先嗰幾個 point 啦，即係 transport 唔同啦，交通方式唔一樣啦，啲假期會長啲啦，同埋咧就而家多啲人會去外國啦，以前係少啲嘅，多數咧就係啲有錢人先去得到啦，因為貴啦，同埋時間啦，係咪各方面啦？咁然後咧即係如果你唔係聽緊呢個部分嘅話，你諗住你做 B1 啦，咁你就要留意啲咩 keywords 啊？咁就係第一個就係下一個部分啦，就係 Adrian statistics。所以當你聽到 Adrian 咧，你應該彈起身啦，醒翻啦 ，OK？ 咁所以啱啱講咗啦 ，Adrian，OK？Maybe Adrian you would be the person to ask。咁你醒一醒啦，然後再聽埋下一粒字 statistics。OK， 咁你就完全要醒翻啦。OK， 如果你做緊第二樣嘢都好啦，咁你知道咧，你就翻嚟 B1 咧要聽呢一忽。
Let me see. Last year, the most popular place to visit was India. 76 million people went there. That's certainly different from 20 years ago.
India. Okay. Which other countries are popular?
Well, the USA has lots of visitors. 59 million went there last year.
Wow, 59 million. That's a lot.
Yes, that's only slightly more than China. There were 55 million visitors.
55 million. I read, or maybe someone told me, that Spain is popular too. Is that right?
Yeah, Spain's still really popular. It had about 52 million visitors last year, I think.
Well, I suppose all that tells us that more and more people are travelling. But I suppose the next thing is, what are they doing when they travel?
Well, one thing I've noticed is that our customers want to stay in different places, like these new types of unusual hotels.
Oh, that's interesting. Can you give us an example of one of these unusual hotels?
Well, the ice hotels, they're popular.
Ice hotels. I've heard of them. Is that like a hotel made of ice?
Exactly. Everything is made of ice. The rooms, the beds, tables, chairs, everything. Our customers really love them.
I've always wondered, are they cold?
No, they aren't cold, but they are in cold countries.
I think I'd like to try staying in one. Any more unusual hotels?
Oh, I know. There's a prison hotel in Australia. I stayed in it last year.
A prison hotel? I thought you only stayed in a prison if you'd done something wrong.
Well, it's not any old prison. In Australia, some old prisons have closed and then they've turned them into hotels.
Really?
Yeah, you can sleep in a cell like a prisoner, but...
What, in a cell? You mean the hotel guests are locked up for the night in a prison cell?
No, you're not locked up. You sleep in a cell, but, you do have a key for your room. It's really good fun.
I'll have to take your word on that one, I think, Kelly. Well, let's move swiftly on to maybe a more serious topic. It certainly seems that more people are travelling, but what are the effects on the countries they
最
visit?
尾嗰 part 啦 ，effects。
What about the
B2
local
嗰 part
people? Are there any negative effects from tourism?
Well, yes, of course, there are always negative effects. Some studies show that increased tourism brings increased crime. Local people carrying out crimes against tourists.
What kind of crimes? Serious or...
Things like stealing cameras or iPhones from tourists is very common. And they're relatively easy to steal. But I think it's important to emphasise that millions of tourists travel safely every year.
Yes, I tend to agree. There are some very positive effects of tourism as well.
Such as?
Well, of course, tourism brings in money.
Yes, if we think about the number of people who are traveling, lots more money is going to countries, and it comes from tourists.
But what are the effects of money?
Well, we can see the effects of money in countries which can start to develop their infrastructure. And it's through...
Sorry, what do you mean by developing an infrastructure in this context?
Well, like building good roads and hospitals. Everyone benefits.
Right. Building good roads and hospitals is obviously important, but...
Yes, and another positive effect of tourism is that countries maintain their traditions. Some countries have kept up some of their customs because it brings in the tourists.
Yeah, I think this can be true. Like in Thailand, before international tourism, some of the traditional dances, like the Nora dance...
The what dance?
The Nora dance. The name doesn't really matter. It's a traditional dance, and it had almost totally disappeared by the 1980s. But it's so spectacular that hotels started putting it on for all the tourists. And now there are Nora dance festivals and competitions all over Thailand.
Right, well, that's a positive way to end the programme. I'd like to say a big thank you to our guests, Kelly and Adrian, this week, and we'll see you all next week. Bye!
That is the end of the listening component of this test.
咁所以咧，你見到咧，其實個佈局咧，每一年咧，大致上咧都係咁嘅。咁就係間住 B1 同 B2 嘅嘢啦。咁而 B1 嗰啲咧真係超簡單嘅，可以係。咁通常最尾嗰忽咧就最複雜嘅。咁你見到佢都俾多啲位。咁頭先嗰啲都間咗俾大家睇啦，唔多講啦。咁 unusual hotel 就有3間啦，一間就係呢個 ice hotel 啦，用冰做嘅，不過唔凍嘅，係咪？咁一間就係 prison hotel 啦，咁監獄酒店啦，咁入咗去咧就又冇鎖起你嘅，你有鎖匙自己開翻自己間房嘅。咁然後咧就仲有第3間係乜嘢咧就唔知道啦。咁即係話咧第3間咧就係喺個 data file 裏邊揾咯。咁呢度有2間先啦。咁然後咧就 B2 最尾就係 effects of travel and tourism 啦，有咩影響啦？咁包括就係頭先所講嘅。令到唔好嘅影響個 negative influence 咧 ，negative effects 咧就係多咗罪案發生啦，例如多咗啲人偷，即係喺啲遊客身上偷相機啊、偷 iPhone 嗰啲啦，係咪？咁然後咧就好嘅 effects，positive effects 咁就係有錢啦，咁錢可以攞嚟做咩啊？錢咧就可以做到咧起一啲嘅基建啦 ，infrastructure。咁發展一啲嘅交通網絡基建等等起橋咁呢啲咧都屬於 infrastructure 呢個字啦。咁起醫院啦， OK， 咁另外一方面嘅好處咧，就係可以令到佢哋嗰個傳統咧得以保存啦。例子就係泰國嘅一啲嘅傳統嘅舞蹈啦 ，traditional dances 啦。咁然後咧就呢個 dance 咧就更加咧係因為有遊客嚟到咧就發大嚟搞添。咁有呢個 Nora Dance Festivals 啦，同埋比賽咁都有。咁呢啲咧就係 B2 咧就會複雜少少，即係可能會有一個半個啲深少少嘅字啦 ，infrastructure 呢啲。咁但係大致上咧佢都唔會講得太深嘅。如果唔係啲同學咧，其實都一嚿雲，因為做完個 part A 咁已經呆地啦，跟住睇埋 data files， 再聽一大抽嘢咧，其實應該呆晒㗎啦。咁所以咧你都唔需要擔心，其實就算B2 都好啦，咁通常講啲嘢唔會太複雜嘅。咁除咗我記得有一年咧講香港嗰啲歷史嘅遺跡啊、文化嗰啲咧，就真係難，嗰年係比較難嘅。咁除咗嗰年之外咧，其他咧你都要有一個心態係，其實你係 handle 到嘅，即係無論即係如果齋講聽嗰 part 嘅話，你做 B1 定 B2 都好啦，咁聽嗰 part 咧係能夠應該做得到嘅。OK。好，咁咧我哋詳細落去望一望 B1 嗰三個 task。咁記得啦，三個 task 第一個係 fact file 啦，咁第二個咧就係 Plaza Hotel 啦，第三個就係嗰三間嘅 unusual hotels 咯。咁所以咧，我哋望一望個 data file 咧，我哋就睇翻其實對翻嘅啫。每一個咧有 title 俾你對翻嘅。OK， 睇邊度啊 ？Travel Report Podcast 咁就係你頭先嗰張 note sheet 啦嘅內容啦。第二個咧就係 Statistics from World Travel Organization 咁即係呢一個啦。咁即係你要睇咩啊 ？OK，World's World's busiest airport。世界最忙、最繁忙嘅機場係邊一個啊？咁睇到啦，係咪？咁好明顯就係 Atlanta。咁即係所以填喺邊度啊？咁你咪揾翻呢一張紙裏邊咧，邊一個位係講緊 the busiest airport 咯？咁如果你隻眼夠快嘅話咧，一眼你就立到啦。其實就係呢個。咁即係你咁樣咧就做咗1分啦。咁即係你睇咁大個表做乜嘢啊？咁填1分嘅啫，其實原來咁就可以飛啦，收工。咁第二個咯，跟住又翻嚟呢度咧，繼續睇逐個對啦。有 press conference， 咁你又揾翻 data file 裏邊 press conference 嗰個 title， 逐個 title 望下邊個係 press conference 嘅 title 咯，係咪呢版啊？係咪呢版啊？哦，你都揾唔到啦，咁啊睇翻目錄一定有話俾你聽邊一頁嘅。咁你望到啦，哦係呢一個喎 press conference 喎，咁即係呢度咧就有你要嘅資料啦。哦 ，World's Best Airport 喎。對一對邊度 best airport 咯，咪下邊嗰橛咯。咁啊3個 best airport， 咁即係揾三個咩啊？國家名、城市名，咁啊自己望清楚啦。人哋叫你揾3個 cities，OK？咁你咪揾翻3個喺呢度揾翻3個城市嘅名稱咯。咁就如果你望一望有冇第4個啊？咁有第4個即係話，如果有一個咧城市咧就係你嘅陰你嘅咯。咁你首先睇下邊啲係城市名先啦，大街嗰啲就有機會係啦。咁啊咁長呢個 best 乜乜乜就唔係啦，係咪？呢個都唔係啦。咁Hong Kong 咪城市名咯，係咪？咁啊赤鱲角就唔係城市名啦。咁啊第二個係新加坡啦，係咪？跟住第3個咧就係首爾啦，韓國嘅首爾啦，咁呢3個就城市名啦。咁啊 South Korea 就唔係答案啦，所以北韓唔係答案，南韓唔係答案啦。咁你都揾唔到第4個城市名咯，咁所以答案一定係呢3個啦。咁邊個第一，邊個第二，邊個第3啊？咁你望埋後邊啲字啦。咁winning first prize 係咪？First prize 咁啊，呢個第1名啦。跟住第2名就係moving up from first place last year， 舊年第3，今年就 move 咗去第2，咁咪即係第2咯。咁然後咧就首爾咧就今年咧就 third place， 咁即係搞掂啦，咁啊做咗呢個啦，1、2、3題收工。咁然後做完呢一個咧又翻返嚟，所以點解呢一張嘅 email 你要睇得咁仔細咧？因為你每做一個 step， 其實你都係要翻嚟。每做一個 step 你又翻嚟，每做一個 step 又翻嚟，然後做下一個部分。咁你做起嚟咧，你先至咧能夠迅速啦，而且咧係冇唔需要任何諗嘅時間，因為你一路諗一路寫咧，以我哋嘅同學嗰個能力嚟講咧係真係困難嘅。 又睇又寫又揾3樣嘢一齊做，搞唔掂嘅，跟住仲要顧埋 grammar， 仲要顧埋 tenses， 邊度搞得掂咧？咁所以拆開嚟做，每次就係做一忽嘅啫，每次就係搞一忽嘢 ，OK， 咁就簡單。咁然後最尾就係 travel bloggers web page 啦，咁就喺邊度啊？咁又揾啦，就係下一橛咯，咁就揾下仲有咩好填啊？咁你咪睇下仲有咩未填咯？原因未填，咁呢個頭先 note sheet 成個表一模一樣㗎啦，咁一定唔係呢嚿啦，咁即係最尾就剩翻呢一忽，咁即係原因啦。咁嘅原因頭先你都記得啦 ，note sheet 裏邊有原因嘅，有3個原因係咪？have fun 啦 ，learning a language 啦，同埋仲有一個唔記得啦，我都咁你自己睇翻啦。咁然後咧就仲有啲就會係喺呢個 travel bloggers web page 嗰度啦，咁就即係呢一度啦。咁即係我哋揾咩咧？揾原因，即係你一路做你一路提醒自己，我而家做緊乜啊？我而家做緊乜啊？我而家爭乜啊？我而家要揾原因咁就喺邊一度揾啊？原因就喺 web page 度揾 ，web page 喺邊度啊？web page 喺呢度 ，OK，web page 喺呢度，我哋揾咩啊？揾原因，不斷提醒自己你自己做緊乜，咁你先至唔會咧做下咧就唔知飛咗去邊。OK， 原因啊，去 holiday 嘅原因啊，點解要去 holiday 啊？咁你咪好快咧就立邊啲係原因啊？有冇原因啊？都唔係原因咧，介紹嚟嘅。呢個介紹咩？介紹翻你等陣要用嗰個喺 Ice Hotel 咯，咪就喺呢度咯，係咪？咁你自己咁你都立緊咯，立緊嘅時候你咪自己順手寫翻咯。呢個 task 7嘅，咁等你自己等陣咧就唔使再揾一次啦。呢度邊度嚟㗎？Prison Hotel 喎，咁你又提自己啦，梗係等陣又要用啦 task 7啦。咁但係我哋而家仲揾緊原因㗎，有冇原因啊？有冇原因啊？睇下有冇原因啊？冇喎，好似都係介紹嚟。呢個又繼續講 Ice Hotel 喎，即係呢嚿都係 task 7。咁又唔係呢度，又唔係呢度，又唔係呢度，咁喺邊度啊？咁咪即係剩翻嗰啲地方咯，係咪？咁咪即係呢度啦。咁就第一句咪咯，中意睇啲新嘅地方，係咪？咁佢立埋落去，咦？又有 hotel 喎，咁即係又係 task 7咯。頭先咪爭一間 hotel 嘅，你提住自己啦。我頭先仲爭間 hotel 邊度嚟啊？咁就係呢度嚟咯。仲有一間 hotel 喺呢處 ，OK。差唔多啦，應該咁就可能。咁你睇下齊唔齊啦？6個原因好似唔齊喎，咁咧即係咧，仲有啲咧可能喺呢度漏咗啦，係咪？咁你要再留意下啦。咁再睇一次啦，唔得嘅話再睇一次有冇啊？咁又再睇一次。再立一次有冇原因啊 ？OK， 咁點立啊？邊啲位會係原因啊？咁你諗翻啊，我有教你 grammar 噶嘛？咁原因係咩嚟㗎？原因嘅 part of speech 咧，即係 noun 嚟㗎嘛？係咪名詞嚟㗎嘛？名詞點樣會係名詞啊？除咗一粒字之外，仲有啲咩 grammar 會係名詞咧？咁包括第一個就係 gerund 啦，係咪？同埋咧。To infinitives 咧都有機會咧係名詞嚟嘅，咁所以你真係揾唔到啦。睇完一次內容，你都發雞盲都揾唔到嘅，咁用埋我教你嘅 grammar 去諗一諗啦。咁gerund 有冇 ing 啊？有冇 ing？ 呢個咪 ing 咯，係咪？呢個已經不過揾咗啦，係咪？咁揾下 to 啊，有冇 to 啊 ？to block in 咪唔係啦 ？to send us 咁唔係啦 ？to 呢個係喎 to meet people 喎。咁呢個咪原因咯，咁揾到第5個原因啦。咁你仲揾唔揾第6個啊？梗係唔揾啦，即係你立完都冇啦，都唔知喺邊度啦。咁你咪即係豪一分俾佢咯。咁你就去做下一個 task 啦，就唔好再喺度抄來抄去啦。咁你最多立埋仲有冇 to？ 冇啊，揾唔到啦。咁我揾唔到啦，唔知喺邊啊。咁就放棄啦。咁如果唔係你執嗰1分，等陣唔知睇幾多嘢咧？因為你要知道你而家做緊咩？你而家做緊大海撈針啊嘛。咁個海都俾你撈咗90%咯。咁爭一個 point 啫，咁你就暫時放棄佢。咁你等你做晒其他嗰啲 task 咧，先翻嚟再揾埋最後嗰1分。咁我哋睇睇個答案啊！答案咧最尾個分喺邊咧？係 try new food。咁你揾下呢度有冇 try new food 啦？我就唔好見到呢度有 try new food 啦。我喺呢度喎，原來有喎 ing 喎，咁所以你得閒又再繼續抄啦。咁ing try new food。OK， 原來喺呢度。咁就算你執唔到呢分，都係少1分嘅。OK， 但係你好清楚知道自己做緊乜嘢。OK， 同埋迅速快嘅，唔 唔好喺度諗 ，OK？ 唔需要諗嘅，尤其是你做 B1 咧係冇諗嘅空間嘅啦。你諗得嚟咧，你做唔切。好，咁我哋剛剛咧就搞掂咗 Task 5啦。咁啊，時間關係咧，我哋好快咧就直落 Task 6。咁啊，我盡量希望咧講埋 Task 7，我哋咧就 take 一個 long 少少嘅 break。咁然後先落 B2。咁應該大家咧聽我講咁多嘢咧，應該都 jam 晒。好，咁啊，做完一個 task 咧，你提自己係時候丟掉咗佢啦。咁啊，剛才你睇呢啲資料咧，唔會再用噶啦，多數90%都唔會再用噶啦。如果尤其是 B1 嘅話，咁你可以將你啱啱咧嗰啲咧塞滿咗個腦嘅一啲嘅 travel 嘅資料咧，可以暫時 delete 咗佢。咁然後我哋 focus 將你嘅自己嘅精神咧集中翻嚟咧做 task 6。呢個心態上面嗰個調節咧，其實遠遠隨時咧唔會比你個英文能力咧重要。咁所以好多同學啲英文好咧，但係都做唔掂呢份卷嘅。點解咧？因為佢唔識調整自己考試嘅心態。OK， 翻嚟 task 6嘅時候咧，今次咧就要做咩啊？望翻啦，我做廣告有咩事啊？有問題啊？人哋嗰個 Plaza Hotel 嘅廣告要話俾你聽，要改咩啊？咁睇邊度啊？睇 minutes。咁啊，首先我哋揾翻個 minutes 喺邊啦。哦，下一版就係 minutes 啦。哦，咁你要睇咩啊？睇個 Plaza Hotel， 你提自己要睇乜嘢，揾乜嘢？如果唔係，你又係大口鬧針。Plaza Hotel 嘅廣告嘅問題，咁你咪揾咯。Plaza Hotel 邊度同 Plaza Hotel 嘅 advertisement 會有，或者係 advertisement 呢啲嘢有關聯咧？係咪？咁你睇啦。咦 ，advertisement 喎 advertiser 喎，咁你睇下講咩啦 ？OK。Remind，OK， 咁留意又係呢啲字啦。Remind， 你要提嗰啲做落廣告嗰啲人啊 ，advertisers 要做咩啊 ？Include business address and phone number in the advertisement。記住要寫公司地址同埋電話 number。仲有冇啊？Remind， 繼續 remind 乜嘢啊 ？remind 咧嗰啲嘅 advertisers company 咧要有 registration number， 要有個登記號碼 ，OK？ 咁即係你等陣咧就要提嗰間 Plaza Hotel 一定要加翻呢3樣啦。咁當然啦，你就要對下佢個廣告啦，佢個廣告係咪漏咗呢3樣咧？咁如果冇漏嘅，咁你就唔好話人哋漏啦。OK， 咁你自己對翻。好啦，跟住仲有咩啊 ？Dead 同廣告有關嘅，deadline 咁呢個實要啦，係咪？頭先你又對翻，老細都有教你㗎，要有 submission deadline 係咪？咁所以咧呢個就係個 deadline 嘅資料啦。然後仲有一樣嘢要提佢嘅，就係個 first payment date， 首次付款日期係幾時啊？咁你見到呢度寫住 payment 啦。咁即係你睇呢個嘅時候，你就要間晒啲重點出嚟，你就要提自己，我要揾乜嘢，我要喺邊一個 data 裏邊揾啲乜嘢，咁然後你就係揾嗰幾粒 keyword 出嚟，就唔好由頭第一句開始睇到最尾嗰句，天蒙光都未揾到。咁啊睇大標題，標題寫 payment， 咁你咪知同 payment 有關咯。OK， 要俾 50% 嘅 payment 啊 ，1 week before the issue was published。And the remaining 50% afterwards， 即係話咧登嗰個廣告之前一個禮拜，你好俾咗一半錢啦。登完之後咧就俾埋剩低個半，咁你咪話俾人聽 ，OK 呢一樣嘢係重要嘅咯，係咪？好啦，咁啊下次會議日期咁關你咩事咧？唔關個廣告商事嘅。好，仲有冇廣告啊？咦，仲有廣告喎！咦 ，half page advertisement， 半頁廣告字數係幾多字咧？係50至70字。咁你可能等人要 check 啦，究竟佢係個廣告咧係唔係半頁廣告咧？係咪50至70字咧？咁樣啦。咁你如果係嘅話咧，咁啊冇問題啦。唔係嘅話咧，咁你要叫佢改啦。 咁啊，抄完呢個 minutes 咯，咁啊做咩啊？唔係寫啊，係翻嚟繼續睇，究竟仲有冇漏其他嘢？哦，睇完嗰個 minutes 之後咧，下一版你要睇嘅咧就係個 copy of the advertisement 啦，就係嗰間 Plaza Hotel 個廣告。咁所以你就要揾翻佢個廣告啦。哦，咪就係呢個咯 ，Plaza Hotel 嘅 advertisement。對一對個標題係呢個啦嘛，係啦，咁你就睇啦。OK， 咁即係咧佢落嗰張廣告咧就係呢版咁嘅嘢咧，就係嗰個 Plaza Hotel 嘅廣告啦。咁然後咧就有乜嘢啊？人哋話俾你聽，我哋個 sales team， 我哋銷售隊伍咧就已經咧寫咗啲 notes 喺度啦，係咪？咁啊睇下啲 notes 講乜嘢咯。咁啊呢啲就係啲，所以你知道呢度做乜嘢咧？呢堆就唔係個廣告嘅一部分嚟嘅，呢堆咧就係你個銷售隊伍寫嘅 notes 嚟嘅。咁你就知道咧係發生咩事啦。啱啱呢個咪就講緊頭先咯，係呢個咧 supposed to be a half-page advertisement， 呢個應該係半頁嘅喎。咁但係咧呢一段嘢咧總字數咧超過80字，咁得唔得啊？咁人哋頭先嗰版上一頁你就睇咗啦。半頁廣告咧最多70字嘅啫，咁你咪話俾人聽咯。你個廣告咧超過咗80字啊，咁所以咧唔好意思啦，你要 cut 字數。咁即係呢啲咧就係你個腦要轉啊，自己你翻工啊嘛，係咪？你翻工你就知道公司規矩，公司規矩就係不能超過70字。咁而家個客寫咗80字俾你，咁你咪要嗌佢唔好意思啊，我哋公司規矩咧係50至70字嘅咋，咁呢個咧就係半頁廣告嘅規則嚟嘅。咁但係咧你篇廣告咧就寫咗80字啦，咁點啊？咁所以咧就麻煩你咧，唔該你將個字數減低啦，或者你可以考慮咧唔做半頁廣告啦，做全頁廣告啦。咁個字數限制咧咁就冇啦咁樣。即係你做呢一種 task 嘅時候咧，你就要諗翻你係對客嘅，你而家係 serve緊你服務緊啲客，咁所以咧你一邊咧你係平衡緊公司嘅利益啦，另一方面咧你係幫緊啲客，咁所以你嗰個語氣咧就要禮貌少少啦，同埋講清楚啲公司規矩係點樣咧。咁但係咧你又有咩可以選擇？你就唔好同人哋講公司規矩係唔準多過80字㗎，你就千祈唔好寫80字啦咁樣，即係咁樣嗰個語氣唔得啦，亦都唔禮貌啦，亦都唔清楚。咁寫幾多先夠啊？咁就你要話到俾人聽係70字嘅，我係半頁先係咁嘅。OK。好啦，另外一個 notes 就係room prices 就 missing， 漏咗廣告，漏咗個價錢，咁啊加翻咯，叫佢係咪？咁你點樣寫啊？個動詞啦，係咪？咁呢度你就可能叫人減字數，咁你咪用呢啲字咯，動詞 reduce 或者 cut down 呢啲字去講啦。咁啊，如果係漏字嘅話，咁咧你咪話 add 咯，係咪加翻啦 ？add it back，OK？add back 嗰個 room prices 咁樣啦。咁你就唔好話唔好淨係話 your room prices are missing 咁樣就唔係幾好啦。你就直接啲同佢講你要改啲乜嘢，要 change 啲乜嘢。咁你話俾佢聽 add back the room prices。OK，into your advertisement， 咁就清楚無誤啦。好啦，相係點啊 ？Tell them a picture of one of the rooms of the hotel would be better， 係咪？用過張圖片啊，用啲房好啲喎。咁點解啊？咁人哋佢其實喺度介紹緊唔同種類嘅房啊嘛。咁整呢張相都唔拉更嘅，係咪？咁你就咦？咁你就用個禮貌啲嘅方式同佢講啦。咁你唔好話佢，喂，你張圖整錯喎，咁啊，你改過第二張圖啦，咁樣咁就語氣就唔係幾好啦。你就話，咦，你張圖片咧係咪整錯咗啊？呢個部分咧你係介紹緊啲房㗎喎。不如你寫翻用翻一張係房嘅相啊，咁樣咁就個語氣咧就會好好多啦。就唔好話人哋，最好就唔好話人錯啦。 咁就你提醒佢嘅啫，只係 OK。咁呢啲咧就係即係考緊你第三樣嘅 skill 啦。咁所以呢份卷咧考緊你第一樣就係你英文嘅 skill 啦，第二樣就係你能唔能夠跟你老細做嘢，跟住識唔識聽指令啦。第二樣嘢，第三樣嘢就係你識唔識對客啦。OK， 呢個就係啲同學有嘅問題。咁所以有啲同學咧，佢出嚟咧part time 冇做過，咁都從來都冇對過客咧，從來都唔會去諗呢啲點樣去表達得好啲。咁所以咧啲同學咧就會喺呢啲位嗰度咧就失分。咁所以點解呢份卷咧啲同學覺得好難做？咁但係如果你 get 到嘅話咧，其實咧 Paper 3嘅呢一份卷咧，其實係4份英文卷裏邊咧最容易攞分嘅，因為每一次都係做呢啲嘢嘅，冇乜大分別嘅，只係個題目個主題唔同咗，但係個要求咧好清楚嘅，每一次都係咁做嘅啫。好，最尾啦 ，contact details，website address、company registration number 就冇啦。頭先嗰版記唔記得要加乜嘢啊？講咗要加3樣嘢喎，要有地址啦，要有聯絡電話啦，同埋要有個登記號碼啦。咁你睇翻啦，人哋嗰個廣告有冇齊呢3樣呢？咦，冇地址喎。冇登記號碼，但係有電話，咁你就唔好話人哋冇電話啦。OK， 咁所以呢啲咧係你自己要醒水嘅東西啦。咁睇清楚啦，咁就搞掂啦。咁點樣開頭啊？首先寫翻個 subject 先啦。咁根據考試 report 咧，啲同學咧做親呢個 subject 咧都唔識嘅。咁就唔好寫埋啲行嘢 to the point， 人哋個 task 要做啲乜嘢，咁你就寫嗰個做 subject。咁你而家就係叫佢份廣告有問題要改，係咪？咁就你就諗下啦，點樣寫一個好啲嘅 subject？ 咁最簡單照寫啦 ，problems of your advertisement。And changes needed 係咪最淺噶啦？直情就講翻頭先個 task 邊度有啊？一開波咪做咗咯，係咪 ？Problems with it 問題要 change， 咁你咪用翻呢啲字眼去講咯，就唔好講埋啲廢話，話講下啲咩你份廣告或者係講下要改咁就咁 changes。咁啊唔 work 啦，或者話公司俾你嘅信息，咁就唔 to the point。subject 就直情講翻個 task 要求你啲咩，咁你識得寫得靚啲嘅，咁咪用啲靚啲嘅字眼咯。譬如話 recommendations， 一啲嘅需要嘅建議啦，或者係修改啦，譬如話 amendments，OK， 建議啦 recommendations， 修改 amendments， 咁即係其實都係呢兩個字，都係呢啲嘢嚟嘅啫。咁不過深啲咁解啦，咁啊高分啲啦。咁開頭點寫啊？咁啊 email 開頭梗係 Dear 乜啦，咁啊人 send 俾邊個都講埋俾你啦。咁啊 Dear Mr. Ross 咁啦，係咪？咁咧，你係代表公司出呢封信嘅，咁所以個開頭咧通常就係咁嘅。I'm writing on behalf of Asia Life。漏咗個 E 添。 咁你就好強烈咧，成個 task 咧係印咗喺你哋腦度。我而家寫你呢封信咧，代表 on behalf of 就係代表我公司啊，我公司叫咩名啊 ？Asia Life 啊嘛，頭先一開波你入咗腦噶啦，已經唔好話俾我聽你唔知公司名叫乜。To advise changes necessary to your advertisement。就去咧俾啲建議你啦，有啲嘢咧需要修改嘅。喺邊做乜要修改啊？因為咧你個廣告咧登去我哋下一期 our next issue 嘅廣告咧有需要修改嘅地方。咁你咪然後咧你就逐個 fit 翻落去啦。有啲咩漏咗啊？有啲咩需要 cut 啊？字數要 cut 啊？跟住然後咧就需要加翻啲乜嘢啊？加翻啲圖啊？加翻啲phone number， 咁你咪自己喺個腦度咧，或者揾張白紙或者揾個位咧，自己 organize 一下。漏嘢嘅，咁你咪將所有漏嘅嘢咧就寫埋一段咯，係咪？要改嘅嘢咧就寫埋一段咯。咁咧就係其中一種咧可以organize 嘅方法。又或者有其他方法㗎，又或者你從個部分去講咯，可能係上邊呢個第一段你用段去寫，第一段你要改乜，第二段要改乜，第三段要改乜，第四段要改乜，第五段要改乜，即係你個廣告裏邊嘅每一個 heading。譬如你咪話呢個 introduction paragraph， 跟住 best and sweets 嘅 paragraph，OK，或者 section 啦，呢個唔叫 paragraph 啦，呢個 section 啦，個部分啦 section。room prices 嘅 section， 咁要改啲乜嘢？咁又得。或者係好似我頭先咁講啦，你將啲同類型嘅問題咧 group 埋一齊，咁呢個就係考緊你個 organisation 個分啦。你點樣去 organize 個內容咧？咁然後寫晒最尾咧就係最尾嗰段咧就記住提埋佢嗰個 deadline 係幾時交個廣告啦，同埋咧幾時要俾錢啦。咁然後講晒啦，咁最尾咧就收結啦，咁結尾。你記住人哋係你個客嚟㗎，咁你所以梗係講咁多廢話，咁都要多謝佢㗎，係咪？多謝佢咧落廣告啦。咁梗係講啲好説話啦！多謝晒你揀我哋公司咧落廣告啦。咁我哋好希望咧，好快咧就會見到你嗰個完成咗修改咗嘅 version 啦，同埋咧希望咧你再次喺我哋度落廣告啦。咁即係呢啲都係代表公司咧啲行嘅説話啦，但係都要講嘅。咁最尾咧就係收尾啦 ，Yours sincerely 啦，係咪？你知道佢個名嘅，知道名咧就用 sincerely 啦，係咪？上次教過大家點記㗎啦 ，faithfully 咧就係嗰啲非認識嗰啲人啦，認識嗰啲就 sincerely 啦，係咪？非認識就 faithfully，OK， 認識咧就 sincerely 啦。咁你知佢個名啦，認識㗎啦，咁就當咁，所以咧就 sincerely啦。咁然後你自己個名啦，你係乜水啊？你係 Marty 潘啊嘛？唔記得自己個名啊？自己名都唔記得，唔使考啦，係咪？咁你喺邊間公司？你係咩職位啊？你就係一個助理嚟嘅，咁 assistant 啦。咁你唔記得啊？你唔記得自己做咩職位㗎？咁你睇翻 data file 一開波嗰度啦。我咧就一睇咧，一開波咧入咗腦㗎啦，唔會唔記得自己係乜水嘅。好啦，咁最尾公司名，使唔使簽名啊？唔使簽名，呢封 email 嚟嘅 ，email 冇簽名嘅，你電腦打㗎嘛，點簽名啫？咁所以咧咁啊搞掂啦，咁啊對翻齊啲位啦，咁就係咁樣做啦。OK。好啦，跟住最尾咧 Task 7咧我就唔講啦。咁嗰篇係 article 嚟嘅，咁就睇你個文字功力啦。呢個咧就冇乜得講嘅， 文字功力就係睇你咧點樣寫個開頭嗰段同埋 close 嗰段。你而家係介紹一個 unusual hotel 係咪？介紹3間咧特殊酒店，咁你咪即係開頭咪講下你係咪好中意去旅行嘅人士咧？你係咪去旅行已經去到悶咧？係咪需要啲新嘅刺激咧？咁咪做個開頭咯。咁啊，我哋而家咧就介紹咧3間咧你一定未去過嘅酒店啦。咁然後就係嗰3段啦，3段係邊度啦？咁啊 data file 揾翻啦，揾翻嗰3間酒店嗰個地方啦。咁嗰3間就係睇翻個答案啦。我哋望住個答案啦，係咪？嗰3間咧，第一個咧就係挪威嘅 Ice Hotel 啦，咁啊呢度就頭先聽翻嚟㗎啦 ，everything made of ice 嚿嘢都用冰做嘅，但係又唔凍嘅咁然後 data file 裏邊揾到嘅咧就多咗呢2個點啦，就係有暖嘅衫着㗎啦，跟住咧就冬天先開嘅呢間嘢。咁然後咧就監獄酒店咧就聽嗰個部分都講咗啦，喺澳洲㗎啦。咁然後咧你就有機會咧瞓喺個監倉裏邊啦。不過咧你自己有鎖匙嘅咁然後 data file 裏邊再追加2個 point 咧，就係history of the prison is interesting 啦，同埋啲人咧有機會咧一齊煮嘢食嘅，咁住喺個 prison hotel 嗰度嗰啲人。咁然後第3間就係最尾嗰個 lighthouse hotel 啦，燈塔。Lighthouse 即係燈塔酒店，咁咧就喺 Scotland 嘅。咁呢個就頭先 data file 裏邊最尾嗰段度全部都喺晒嗰度啦，咁就可以睇雀仔啦。咁如果你頭先有留意嘅話咧，咁呢個就第3個 point。咁所以咧你就介紹晒3間酒店個內容之後咧，最尾結尾就寫下啲你係咪好呢個躍躍欲試啊？咁啊今個冬天咧就考慮下去 Ice Hotel 啦。咁啊 book 記住 book 定嘅喎，係咪？咁啊類似嗰啲咁嘅嘢啦，咁。即係之類啦，即係 sounds interesting 一啲啦 ，sounds 係雀躍啲啦，因為始終你呢個係旅遊雜誌啊嘛，咁就唔好咧平鋪直敍咧，唔好俾一啲 facts 咁樣啦。好，講完。咁 B1 咧就去到呢度啦，我哋休息15分鐘咁翻嚟咧就講。20分鐘啦，即係比較辛苦啊！咁我哋休息20分鐘咧，搭半啦，10點半我哋翻嚟咧就講開 B2 啦 ，OK？咁如果同學有問題咧，或者有意見咧，都可以而家提出都可以嘅。 Sorry, I forgot to turn on the sound again, because I can't broadcast any music on YouTube. That will violate the copyright, and then the video will be deleted. I'm sorry, Clouds. So basically, I'm talking about how we should choose B1 and B2. So if you choose B2, then there is no discount. But if you choose B1, there is about a 0.6 discount if you get about half of the mark. And of course, if you get if you get the full mark correct, then the discount is smaller. If you get all correct, then you get the full mark. But of course, you know that you are barred to only level 4. You can't go over level 4 at all if you do B1. So that's it. So that's why we have to talk about B2, and you should try to do some B2 past papers, especially to make sure you have a feel of what the B2 is like, and to help you to choose which part you would attempt in the real exam. So let's go for the B2 data file first. The situation is completely the same. You are still Marty Poon, you still work for Asia Life, your boss is still Cassie Wong. But only the tasks are different, and the data file is also different. But the things are quite similar. Things like minutes are there. And there's also transcript. This one may be new to you. Transcript 係嗰個錄音稿，即係啲人講完嘢之後咧，寫翻出嚟嗰個錄音稿嘅 transcript。And interview notes, letter, and then there's a forum 嗰啲網上論壇嗰啲嘅東西 travel forum. So there are different types of data, and there is also a blog page. But the basics is the same. You still have the note sheet, you still have the same point when you listen to it, but there is also the boss email, but the tasks are different. So let's look at what the tasks are. So the first one is short feature article. We want to write a short article about travel and tourism in Hong Kong in the 1920s, entitled Hong Kong Tourism, the Way It Was. So this corresponds to the part of the first part in the note sheet that talks about the history of Hong Kong tourism. So in this article, you need to include a few things. So include some examples of what travel and tourism was like in the 1920s. If you remember the points just now, we have things like the transport was different. People traveled by ship and by train, not by airplane at that time. And then only rich people can afford the expensive prices, and the time and the length of the holiday would certainly be longer because they have more time to spare. So these kind of things would be useful points in probably some examples of what it was like in the past. And also it would be great if you can do some higher level things like comparison. 比較啦, so you can compare between what the past was like and what it is like now. Again, usually not a must, but sometimes they will still tell you where you can find the information. So you can read the interview notes. So this is one thing you can read. Interview notes from the interview I did with Mei Chang last month. And also these words. Remember to look at the notes. So that's the points from the travel podcast too. So only two things. So you're only writing this article using two pieces of data. So it looks like an easier part. But I have to tell you, in the exam report, this is the worst task that students have attempted. Partly because they are probably not that good at history. Not a lot of schools offer history courses these days. And usually when they study history, they do not study Hong Kong history that much. And usually students are weaker in writing these kind of articles. And it's a feature article, so it really goes into your ability to write history in a more interesting way. And certainly it's not something that you would write every day. And even in exams, you don't have a lot of chances to practice in these kind of stuff. Because we teachers usually would not give you such unfamiliar topics. And that's why the DSE students did it the worst for this task, in fact. Now, the second task, this is task 6. So task 6, we have an email to Queenie Lau. So Queenie Lau has submitted an article about plastic surgery holidays in Thailand. Wow, plastic surgery in Thailand. Does it mean change sex? Make a man into a woman? I don't know. Sounds interesting. Article about plastic surgery holidays, and it's submitted by Queenie Lau for inclusion in the next issue. The editorial team, that means the team of editor in your magazine, 編輯部啊，編輯隊伍, the editorial team has reviewed it, and she needs to check and change a few things. Well, this is very similar to the task 6 in B1. Again, you in B1 you got an advertisement that have something that you need to change, and in B2 you also get an article that you have to reply to the writer this time, that she has to check and change a few things. So please email her and tell her what need to be changed. And make sure you remind her about the deadline. So this is quite the same, the deadline for submission. And if you understand the design of this examination, you would know that this would be the easiest task because it's the most similar to the task in B1. And you may want to read the notes, looking at the notes about her article from the editorial team. So this is where you need to read. Well, only read one piece of data to work on this task. So obviously this would be the easiest task. And even in the exam report, this is the task where students did the best out of these three. Last one is an editorial. Students usually mix up what this is, so let's read it in detail. Please write the editorial for the next issue to highlight the positive effects of tourism. So positive effects. You need to write an editorial. You need to write an editorial. You need to write the positive effects of tourism. Now, remember, in the note-taking, we have the negative effects and the positive effects. The negative effects include increase in crime rate, increase of cases like stealing the smartphones, stealing the iPhones, stealing the cameras. But this article asks you to only write the positive effects. That means you don't write about the negative effects. Even you have heard it and wrote it down, probably on your note sheet here. Probably you would have written it down in the note sheet. but you don't use it. Okay, you don't use it. You only write the positive things. So that includes the points like the Thailand Nor traditional dance called the Nor dance, the competition, and also the festival, and also the money helps the development of the infrastructure, the roads and hospitals, right? Those are the positive effects that you need to put down in this one. And you can use the letter. So use the letter. So you use the letter. So that means the points come from the letter from letter Hui. And use that letter as a starting point. Write the editorial to argue against his position. So if you remember what I've talked about in debate speech, you are writing against his position. That means you have to disagree with Calvin. So you have to say what he said was wrong. So this is a little bit like when you were writing a debate speech, but you need to use the information from Calvin Hui, look at his points, and then use data from the data file to disagree with this Calvin. And you need a title, and you need a brief to 1 to sentence summary of Calvin point of view. So you need to look at Calvin's letter and then summarize. You need to summarize his point, but very briefly. You don't write a big paragraph, you just write what his points are. And finally, you put down all the positive effects of tourism on local people, probably in several paragraphs. And then the first paragraph, the first point would be the development, right? Develop infrastructure. And then another point would be the preserve or protect or keep the traditional culture. So here are 2 points that we have heard about in the listening part. And then they also give you the hints. Except the letter from Calvin Hui, you can also start by looking at the letter from Calvin Hui. That's the first thing, right? And don't forget to check your notes. So there are some points in your notes. So it's these 2 points. So nothing else. Letter from Calvin Hui and the notes. No more. So you see that B2 is very different. B1, they want you to read a lot of different stuff which are very short and then put them into the different tasks. And B2, usually they ask you to focus on 1 or 2 pieces of data only and then dig into a lot of details. And because these data would be written in a much more difficult way, and the language is usually more complex than the data file in B1. So you will spend more time in finding the points and organizing the points. In B1, most of the time you spend on finding the points only. You find 1 point, 2 points, come back and forth, look at the boss email, go back again, and then find a single point, put it down, and then write it. B2, not so much the same. You spend a lot of time just finding the points, and then you spend even more time organizing it and writing it down. So the complexity and the time allocation, time management is a little bit different for B2. So for B1, you need to work really, really fast, and every single step should be straightforward, direct, simple. Just do what they ask you to do. B2, not so much the same. B2, you need to get the points, reorganize it, paraphrase it, try to find your own words, think about how you should present it according to the genre here. Save for the middle task. This task is the straightforward task you see in B1. But for the other two, you need to really think about it like you are writing a piece of composition. And a third complexity is on the genre. B2, usually they will give you genres which are less common. B1, usually you have you have articles, email, and sometimes just a piece of letter, like complaint letter, suggestion letter, invitation letter. So not usually no uncommon genres. But for B2, you will see things like letter to the editor, debate speech, speech, welcome speech, etc. It's more similar to when you're doing paper 2. And a lot of students just confuse this genre with letter to the editor. They are two different things. Letter to the editor is the reader's right to Letter to the editor is where the readers write to the newspaper. That's the letter to the editor. How about the opposite way? That is called the editorial. It's the newspaper editors write to the readers. So in the 2013 exam report, it points out that a lot of students mix up these two things, and they thought is writing the letter to the editor, but it's completely different. You are part of the editors of the magazine, and you receive Calvin Ho. Calvin Ho's letter is the letter to the editor, and now you need to reply to this reader and then say, no, our magazine does not believe in what you think. And that adds an extra layer of complexity to this task. So since time is running out, I'm only going to talk about the middle task, which is quite similar to B1. And then tomorrow's lesson, we will focus on the two more difficult tasks. So let's quickly look at the notes about her article from the editorial team. So if we search for the data on the contents page, you will see it is data number 5 is notes from the editorial team on Queen Lau's article, and the page number is page 7. So we quickly scroll to the data file, page 7, and where is the data file number? The data file number is here. It's not this one, it's this one. This is the data file number. So data file page 7. Of course, in your DSE, you will have to write you will have the real page number printed here. But this is the past paper. So the past paper's page number will be here. So data 7. Okay, so it's the notes here. Sorry. And remember, you also need to find the deadline of the submission. So this is one thing, and also deadline for submission, that is the second thing. So this is a form, a bit different from what you have seen from last one, from B1. They have the advertisement. This time they don't give you Queenie Lau's article. Instead, they give you a form, a review form. After they read After they have read Queenie Lau's article, they write a form to see what the problem is. Okay, so the first problem would be the images. Remind her about letting us have images. How many we need, the format, and the source. So you need to tell Queenie how many pictures we need and what is the picture format and the source of the pictures, where you should or where you can find or where you can't find the pictures from, and maybe write down the source. So you see, this is not your answer. In B2, in B1, usually when you read the data file, you will extract this part as your answer. But B2, instead of giving you the answer, they give you a new hint that you need to find. So you need to find out how many we need. You need to find out the format. You need to find out what about the source. So this is not your answer. And this is the new hint for you to find things. Another part, title is missing. And then you need also, again, another hint. You need to find the limit of number of characters. How long can the title be? And you need to find this. You don't get the answer here. You need to find it again. Okay, and then Queenie's article has 1,200 words. But what is the word limit? So you need to check the word limit. Again, they only give you a hint. Please check and then tell her. So publish, yes, with changes. So if Queenie change it, then they will publish the article. So no problem. And then reviewers know Queenie needs contacting about the above. Also the spelling. So another thing is the spelling. So check the spelling. Oops. So they need to check the spelling of the places in Thailand. And ask her if all the details in the article are accurate. So you need to actually ask her the question. In B1, you usually just put down what they give you. In B2, you need to change the sentence pattern. This is a statement, this is a sentence, this is a statement. But now you need to write her a question. Follow this up with her directly. So that means you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and also 5. There is the deadline for submission you need to find. So there are 5 things you need to find. So 1, about the pictures. 2, the title. And then 3, word limit for the whole article. And then 4, spelling of the Thai places, and ask her to check if all the details are accurate. And 5, submission deadline. So you see, in B2, they give you a very simple hint. So it's the boss email giving you just the basic hint, and you read another specialized hint page for finding the hints, and then now you need to find this information from other pages of the article. And where are those pages? They don't tell you. You need to read the contents page again to think about which data would contain the information we need from here. So now, this is an article, and that must be some guidelines. But these are all guidelines. How many pictures, how many words for the titles, and then submission deadline. There must be some guideline for it. So which one it is? So maybe 會議記錄 the minutes may be editorial meeting, right? 編輯部開會嘅會議記錄 maybe there is some information from here. Oh, writer's guideline, for sure. You need to tell the writers what they need to write. Transcript of TV travel show, not related. Travel forum, not related. Interview notes, not related. Kelvin Hui, not related. Blog page, not related. So that means by filtering the title of the data, you will know that your information will probably be on these two data. They just don't tell you which to find. So that means we read the minutes first to see whether there's anything about Queenie's article. Oh, if you look very quickly, scan the page for keywords like article, Queenie Lau, and maybe Thai plastic surgery, all these are the keywords. Then you will quickly see that here is Queenie Lau. And what they have to do include to follow the guidelines, so that is the next data we need to look at. And then every writer should be encouraged to submit 15. So this is the real point you need to put. So 15 to 20 pictures. And then the editorial team would choose 5 pictures for each article. So that means you need to tell Queenie now, you need to give us 15 to 20 pictures, and then we would decide to use only 5 of them. You have to tell her very clearly on this point. And this is, and this is point number 1. So the first thing, how many we need. So we need 15 to 20, and we will only choose 5 of them. So this is how you find the hint, from the hint to the exact answer. Okay, next one, deadline for articles. Oh, so this is the last point, so we need this. So deadline is 30th April. And we don't need to don't need to talk about payment. It's not in the email, so we can ignore payment. And then next meeting, not related. And word limit. Oh, word limit. So you see word limit here. So the word limit is 900 words. So remember, Queenie's article was 1,200 words. So again, she has to cut down the number of words. So it's the same point, the same question like it was in B1. So that means up to now, if you don't remember the things, you can put it down. You can write it here so that when you organize your letter, you can quickly find the information. So 15 to 20 pics, and then our team will only choose 5. And then the deadline is 30th April. And then the word limit is 900 words. And that means she has to cut down from 1,200. That is not okay. So this is the information we find from the first piece of data. And then the second piece of data is the writer's guidelines. So all articles must be submitted on time to allow the editorial, so that is the deadline, right? But also, you need to remind her, don't be late. Don't be late for submission. The deadline is 30th April. So again, after you extract this, you can put it down again. That's why it would be great if you put up your hand for a piece of rough worksheet. So late submission would not be considered. This is the second thing you can find from the guideline here. And then copyright. Any material used, including photographs, must not breach copyright. 唔能夠侵犯版權嘅 Okay? Writer should state the source of images. So these are the two other things. So the source, this is about the source. So the source cannot breach, or you can say violate copyright. And then must include the source. Okay, so these are the two things about the source. How about format? Format is like this. Images of articles, soft copy, and then in JPEG file format. If you know what is, if you know about stuff in computer, you will know pictures have different computer formats, and the most common one is JPG or JPEG. It's the same thing. So this is the format part. So format, you need soft copy and JPEG format. Okay, so we find the information, the three pieces of information here. And then word limits is in the meetings. So they are worried that you can't find the word limit. So they ask you to go back to the minutes and find the word limit. And titles is no more than 80 characters. 80個字母啊 characters 即係字元或者字母 characters like include things like question marks, punctuation marks, okay, exclamation marks, punctuation. So not just alphabets, but also the punctuation. So you have to tell for point number 2 is smaller than 80 characters. Okay, this is point number 2. And then you have, don't forget to tell her Queenie's article, she has no title. So she has to add back the title. So add title. And also the title must be smaller, less than 80 characters. And then style of article to be decided by the writer. So that's nothing we need to talk about because it's the writer can make a decision. And then 7, Asia Life magazine retains the right to any articles published. And this one is talking about whether we will publish. But remember, we have already agreed in the meeting that when there are changes, we will publish her article. So we probably don't need to put this point. But say, for example, if it's not decided, then you have to tell Queenie. Okay. But to be safe, I think you should still try to write this down. Would be better. Okay. So you can tell her, we reserve the right to any article published, and that's why we will only publish your article if you have made the changes we recommend. So that would be much safer. Since you see one piece of information and two pieces of information here, it would be safe for you to put down. Last one, once an article is accepted for publication, payment will be made. So again, to be safe, you can tell her about if we accept your articles, you will need to pay. But I think this one may not be necessary. But to be safe, you can try putting down in just one sentence. Okay, So I think that's all. Yeah. So we have found all the pieces of information from point 1 to point 3 and also point 5. Point 4, you just need to tell her these things. Nothing very special. And if we look at the answers, that would be task 9. So firstly, you need to write the subject line, just like any emails. You have to tell her, okay, your article needs some changes. There are some problems with it. And then the first paragraph about the pictures. So 3 things about the pictures. And then about the word limit of the article should be within 900 words. And then the third paragraph would be no title needed. Oh, no. It means her title was missing. She need to add a title. And also it has to be no less than 80 characters. And then the fourth paragraph, check the names of the spelling of the type places and ask her to confirm that all the information is correct. And last paragraph, tell her the submission deadline is 30th April. So just like what I have just said, these 2 points are not needed. Okay, even in the answers, you don't need these 2 points. Examples of acceptable subject lines, including words like changes, comments, amendments. So tell her that her plastic surgery holidays article needs to be changed. But if you write something like this, it's not okay. And the format is exactly the same like the one in B1, so I'm not repeating. So very quickly, we go for it again. So we have I am writing on behalf of Asia Life. That's the beginning, and the ending would be something like thank you for sending your article to us, and we look forward to blah 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 blah. And finally, the ending would be yours sincerely. 非認識嘅就先用 faithfully, okay? And then again, your name, Party Poon, and then your assistant, and then the name of your company, which is Asia Life. So that's finish the email. Okay, so that's all I have to talk about it today. Our lesson has officially ends at 11:15, so I am done with my part. If you have any questions, you can feel free to stay and ask your questions. If not, you can leave and take a rest before your next lesson. Thank you for today. Thank you for tuning in to the DSE 2013 listening, and tomorrow we will be finishing the last 2 tasks. See you tomorrow.
Sir.
Yes.
可唔可以要多次你 WhatsApp 電話 number？
Oh, okay. Let me turn off the YouTube first.